Batman is a character that has been transformed many times in many different multiverses. However, he's also a character that tends to get stuck in returning to the status quo, which is why I think he would be honestly fascinating to see in this new Elseworld reality, if that is what Absolute DC ends up being. As of this time, it's a little speculative, but could be. We would be fully free to explore the potential for what Batman could get up to in terms of having him be a very different character. Now, this is a reality where we would be extremely free based on rumors and would not have to worry about returning him, back to once, which is why it would be super interesting to see him in Absolute DC. I mean, the places we could go. You could bring on a very interesting creative team as well, that you could do something extreme with the art, something that I love when we see in Batman, highly stylized art. You could even see a Batman who breaks some of the moral codes that we know him for, or simply just has a completely different moral code altogether. His moral code could be completely redefined here. Now granted, I'm not a person who's big on seeing Batman use guns or anything like that. However, I do think it would be interesting to see him with a different moral code, something that perhaps we haven't seen before yet in the comics in terms of, what defines this character. There's a lot to play with Batman. What's your favorite version of Batman that we've seen? What do you think defines Batman? I mean, what do you think defines DC as well as a publisher? Man, that's a big question. When it comes to where the Green Lanterns could be at Absolute DC, I think there's a lot of potential for the whole core. Also, for those that don't know, Absolute DC is rumored to be a new line that is happening over at DC. It's going to be headed by Scott Snyder. Just a little bit of information there in case you were wondering. I actually did a whole video on my own channel, I talked about it, but yeah, you can look it up. There's articles on it. It sounds like it's going to be basically like Marvel's Ultimates. Now, when it comes to Green Lanterns, one, we have a lot of lanterns to play with if we want to use someone that already exists in the multiverse or even in the main continuity, and two, there is a potential here to create a completely new Green Lantern or even a new Green Lantern mythos in this reality. What if we started from square one, but we didn't even start with Alan Scott or Hal Jordan, and we went with somebody completely different for the beginning of our introduction to the Green Lanterns in this new Elseworld reality line? Personally, I think that could be super interesting. I mean, the Green Lanterns in general are just super fascinating. The core, even all the other core as well that are different colors, I mean, there's so much to play with there. Supergirl is a character that I feel like is sometimes underutilized, but who is often a favorite based on what we do see of her. We've seen multiple versions of this character that have had very different vibes to them and also honestly very different looks. We've seen her evolve and change a lot through different eras, some of which we've loved, some of which I personally have been less big on. I see great possibilities here with what we have the potential to do with Kara. With Kara, we could do something completely different that exists separate from all of the history, all of the continuity that we've seen of her before. And let's be honest, the history and the continuity for Supergirl can sometimes be the worst parts of this character, because throughout different continuities and different eras, her origin has been pretty confusing at times. And don't even get me started on the other version of this character, Power Girl. Goodness, Power Girl and her origins, it's wild. Granted, with Supergirl, we do have a range of people we could choose from in terms of even which Supergirl we want to feature. I mean, I know Power Girl is her own character, but she is also kind of an alternate version in terms of the role that she plays and, her connection to Clark, to Superman. So we could even make Power Girl the new main continuity Supergirl in this reality if we wanted to, which I think could also be cool because personally I really love Power Girl, so we could also do something more with her character too. I love Raven, so I would love to see just more done with her character in general. I've been reading the current run of Titans and honestly I have loved seeing her there, and I've just been loving that series in general. If you're not reading Titans, go check it out. But honestly, I just feel like there could be so much more that we could do with this character, with bringing Raven in a sense kind of back to the beginning of her stories is I think where I'd like to go. There's a lot more that we could build with her from there. There's a lot more that we could clean up in terms of her continuity and her origins, or we could just do something totally different with this character, and honestly I'd probably be into that. I'd love to see something in the vein, but of course different than what we did with her in the Earth 1 reality. Raven on Earth 1, for those that don't know, the number 1, not the letter 1 because there's 2 Earth 1s, is a Native American, and I feel like that choice just fits really interestingly into the magical and spiritual nature roots of this character and Raven's history and lore, to be honest. So I would love to see something like this done, but of course different because we already did that, but just something like that. Like, let's explore who this character is and see if there's some interesting angle we could find for that. Mainly, I want to see Catwoman in absolute DC because I would just love to see what we do with her look there. Now, we've seen a lot of different origins baked into Catwoman's backstory over the years, but I think with absolute DC there could be potential to clarify some of that stuff and honestly just throw away some of the things that I just don't think best serve this character. I'm gonna be honest. I'd really love to see something different on the table as well. Maybe even a version of her that didn't start out as a thief. I mean, what could that be like? Catwoman, but she's not a thief. I don't know. Could that be fun? Who is Selina if she's not a thief? Let's find out. What if we saw a world where Catwoman actually was the hero, and while we follow Batman, perhaps is of course still the protagonist, he's actually the criminal. And maybe instead he pulls her over to the side of crime, as opposed to, you know, him being a part of her reformation. Or maybe vice versa. She pulls him over to the side of heroism and she actually helps him to reform. Have we seen that in the multiverse before? I don't know. It's a big wide multiverse out there, friends, but I would be interested to see something in that vein, or just something, you know, that's radically different done with Selina's character. I feel like we could find an interesting angle to explore her from, and maybe it doesn't even involve her being a thief. Like I said, I don't know. I just think there's a lot to her character. I'm as tired of Amanda Waller as pretty much everyone else is at this point. I think a lot of people are tired of Waller. She's just been behind pretty much everything massive lately, it feels like, in DC Comics. And you know, I do know that that is for a reason, that we're building a story with her in mind and she is being made this central character, but I'm honestly, I'm tired of it. I'm gonna be real with you. And this is why I would love to see her in absolute DC. Now, we have a very strong sense of who Amanda Waller is. She's a very strong character in the comics, but if we brought her into absolute DC, we could just do something completely different with her there, which would be super cool to see, I think. She's so strongly defined in the main continuity at this point, and even the DCU, so to see something, I don't know, completely different done with her, to see something that surprises me, would be really refreshing, because I always feel like I know what Amanda Waller's gonna do now. At this point, I can kind of anticipate her moves, and so, you know, some of the shock factor from that is just gone when it comes to revealing, you know, the extremes that she's willing to go to. Amanda Waller, she's so extreme. It's like, yeah, I know. I'm expecting her to be like that because I've just seen too much of it. You know, at least in the main continuity, I feel like that's kind of where we're at with her, so I'd love to see a different world give us a fresh take. Booster Gold is a character who is just not doing much, it feels like, in the comics currently. Now, granted, I'm not reading everything DC, so if there's something crazy Booster Gold happening and I'm missing it, please tell me about that because I probably want to check it out. He also has a reputation for being, people are gonna get mad at me for saying this, but kinda useless, and also being kind of annoying as well. Something that is built over the years. Now, there are Booster Gold fans out there, and if that is you, hello. I see you. But to be honest with you, I feel like Booster Gold fans are few and far between currently. I feel like Booster Gold is overall a very divisive character in terms of what we've seen with him in the comics and in general just how people feel about him based on that. Now, I would really love to see Booster Gold in absolute DC get some kind of redemption, to be honest. I'd love to see him become a really popular character, and I think revisiting him in a continuity where we can really do just about anything with him would be a good way to see something like that happen. Ultimately, I think Booster Gold is super cool because I do think he's someone that really wants to be a hero, but he's got a lot of flaws, and you know, I don't think that he doesn't want to be annoying, you know, so we could do that for him. Either we could do something completely different, or either he's going to maybe get some popularity through absolute DC, or maybe the show that we're supposed to get about him will get more people on board with this character as we explore this character more, which just I would love to see because I do personally, I really like Booster Gold myself and I think he's super interesting, but I just feel like we don't do enough with him. I don't know, I feel like he always gets the short stick sometimes. You know? I've got to be honest with you. After the Blue Beetle movie, I kind of became more of a fan of Jaime Reyes. I feel like I actually really liked the Blue Beetle movie. Like, especially now that I think about it in retrospect, man, that was a really fun movie. I feel that Blue Beetle in general is a character that has a lot of really cool history. Something that I enjoyed that they did in the movie was trying to connect the threads a little bit more in terms of our Blue Beetles and the Blue Beetle legacy. Whether we're talking about Dan Garrett Blue Beetle, Ted Kord Blue Beetle, or Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle. All of them honestly are interesting in their own ways, and I would love to see either one, or perhaps even all of them, in absolute DC in some capacity, and just see, I don't know, what we could do to add or clarify when it comes to the shared legacy that they have. Something that I thought is a little bit strange is that, you know, we have Ted Kord, who, you know, he's like an inventor, super smart guy, makes a suit, and then we have Jaime, who gets his suit, and it's kind of like an alien symbiote. It's you know, it's alien tech, but they're both Blue Beetle, but they have very different vibes for their characters and very different origins. So it's interesting that they're in the same legacy, that they're both Blue Beetle. So maybe there's something we could do in terms of blending these origins together more, or introducing something new to help more clearly define that legacy. I feel like they did that a little bit more in the film, and I really liked that. So maybe we do that in Absolute DC, something in that vein. Now, I've never been a huge fan of Stephanie Brown. Granted, I haven't read a ton of Spoilers comics, so don't at me. Spoiler fans out there, or well, do at me. Spoiler fans out there, feel free to recommend me stories and issues to check out in the comments, please, because I'm curious. I do wanna love Stephanie Brown. I love the idea of Stephanie Brown. But I also just feel like whenever I do dip a toe in to just like check out, you know, what's up with Stephanie? What does she do? What's she got going on? I just can't get a really strong sense for who her character is, which is why I personally feel like having her in something like Absolute DC would be an asset overall, to see what we could give to her character and perhaps strengthen with her character a little bit more in terms of just making her more iconic, more stand out. Like, let's bring her up to Babs level for me. That's what I would love to see. I do really love the idea of Spoiler. Dad was a villain, becomes a hero, trains to be Robin, basically fired by Batman. I would just like to see her more clearly defined in terms of who she is personality wise, and in terms of like what makes her tick, what she stands for. And I think Absolute DC could be an opportunity for us not only to do the character justice in regards to, you know, fixing some injustices in her past that she's suffered through, but also just making her a stronger, more defined character overall, to get more people to buy in to some of the previous history from the main continuity that we have with her. That's about it. I'm your host, Amanda McKnight. Until next time, you stay nerdy, YouTube.